Welcome to the live stream, everybody. Tonight, we're going to be talking about how much land does it take to grow your own food. I invite you to come on in, sit down, pull up a chair. Let's talk about it. We're just going to give a few minutes for some people to pop in. I see people starting to pop in already. Welcome, everybody. Go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat if you don't mind. And while you're at it, go ahead and hit the thumbs up on the video. We'll see if we can hit the YouTube algorithm and try to get some more people to come in and watch. How many people out there are actually growing all of their own food? I'm curious. Leave a comment down the bottom if you watch this video on Rewind, and let us know how much of your food that you're able to grow. Here, we're growing all of our own green beans, all of our broccoli, and all the squash that we eat. And there's a few other things, all of our onions and tomatoes and peppers. So we're not growing a huge amount, but we definitely believe that we're going to be increasing the amounts this upcoming year. We grew about 25 pounds of potatoes this year, and that's really going to add in. We just secured a quarter of a cow, so we're going to have beef. And one of the things that Michelle, which she's not here with us tonight, she's feeling a little under the weather. We just got back off of a road trip this past weekend, and I think she caught a cold. She got a bit of a sore throat, so if you don't mind just remembering her. So we've secured a little quarter of a beef cow so that we can add to the freezer for food security. We didn't grow that. My cousin Lucas grew it, and then he has someone that helps him out on the farm, and he took the cow over to his property and finished out the cow, and then that's who we ended up buying the cow from. So we know how this cow was raised, and we know it wasn't raised on Grazon or any kind of grasses that we don't want in our diet. So we trust that this is going to be a good cow. But with the upcoming food crisis, we're trying to secure more land. We're going to try to expand our gardens and start growing more and more of our own food. We think it's very imperative. I've noticed that a lot of other YouTubers are pushing the agenda of at least grow something. There's something that everybody can grow. Even if you live in an apartment, you can grow something on your patio as long as you're not on a north-facing wall where you get absolutely zero sun. If you have some type of a balcony, you can probably grow a little bit of something. Hey, Jennifer, welcome. So you're just starting out with growing. You have a few chickens and some rabbits. Are you using the rabbits for meat? Is that what your plan is for that? A lot of people will get into this homesteading thing and try to do it just for the fun of it, more of a hobby farm than trying to produce their own food. So I see a lot of YouTubers out there with animals that don't add value to the farm, only to their YouTube channels. And that's fine. You know, whatever floats your boat, that's fine. I don't want to take care of animals that don't feed us or benefit the farm somehow. But Michelle has decided that she's reading a new book, How to Cure Heart Disease, or some variation of that title. And she's decided she's going to try the vegan diet. Vegetarian diet. And so she's going to be cutting out all oils, anything that has a face or a mother. She's not going to be eating, and she's going to be trying that. I say try it. She says she's going to do it. So we'll see how far she goes with it.
All dairy.
All dairy.
No nuts and no avocado.
No nuts and no avocados.
And no oils.
Right, I said oils, but no oils, anything that produces an oil. So we're going to see how she does.
I'm already almost there anyway.
Yeah, we're almost vegetarians anyway, aren't we? We don't eat very much meat. We do have a little serving of meat every night, but we don't just fill up on meat generally. It's not far from me turning into a straight vegetarian. I really like vegetables. Yeah, trying to recapture some victory garden living. That's yeah, me too. Try to recapture some of that victory garden. Back when people were doing the victory garden thing after the war, about 80, somewhere around 80% of the United States population was getting their food from their own backyards. So they were growing most everything. My grandmother, grandfather, they had a 1 acre garden. They put a cow and a pig in the freezer every year and fed their kids. And that's just the way the life was. And then, of course, whenever their kids grow up, they're sick and tired of the lifestyle. So the lifestyle ends up dying and going away. And now we're trying to resurrect that lifestyle and farm up some of that old information. Like, well, what did the farmers do? I was looking at my potatoes that I dug, and I was thinking, what did my grandmother do with all those potatoes that she raised in her garden? Well, she had a big corn crib, and she would go out in the corn crib and lay down newspapers and then space all the potatoes out on the bottom of that corn crib so they weren't touching. And they kept in the corn crib from season to season, or from harvest to next harvest. So those potatoes will last for a full year. All right. Things to consider when you're talking about raising your own food. I'm generally going to be talking about vegetables tonight. And there's some points that I want to hit, and I'm going to show you some slides of what I use to calculate how much food we need to plant in order to raise up to sustain us from season to season. Let's go ahead and do the slides. I've been for years have been going to this website. Urban Farmer. Urban Farmer has some calculators. It's got a vegetable seed calculator, tells you how many vegetable seeds you have. Your spring vegetable schedule calculator kind of calculates in when you need to be planting and starting your seeds based on your last frost for the year. Below that, you got the fall vegetables schedule calculator. So based on your first frost of the year, what vegetables you need to be putting in the ground. The vegetable yield calculator and how much to plant calculator, which is what I wanted to bring to you tonight and kind of show you. I've been playing around with these calculators probably for about 6 or 7 years now, and it's my go-to. That's what I do is I modify them, I print them out, I keep them on hand so that I can easily reference it, and I don't always have to go to the computer and pull these up. Now, here is the calculator. These calculators are just Excel spreadsheets, and towards the top of it, you've got how many members of your family you're trying to feed. And I went ahead and I selected 4. And whenever you select 4, it recalculates this spreadsheet. Now, this is just a go by. Everything that we are talking about tonight is just an estimate. It's a rough idea to kind of get you started, to head your thoughts down where you need to go in order to raise all your vegetables. Not everybody's going to plant everything on the spreadsheet. Not everybody eats everything on the spreadsheet. But some of the staple crops that most people look towards for sustainability is beans, broccoli, cabbage, carrots, cauliflower, corn, cucumbers, eggplant, garlic, kale, okra, peas, peppers, potatoes, and winter squash go into the pumpkin category. And then we grow spinach for our salads. And then squash we put up, and tomatoes we also put up. So when you're looking at a family of 4, it tells you in your first column here the yields that you would need in order to feed a family of 4. So right here in beans, you're going to need about 60 pounds. I guess that's if you're eating lots and lots of beans, because that is a ton of beans. You've got to be eating beans once or twice a week in order to get that much. And then based on the sowing recommendations, that in order to get that 60 pounds of beans, you're going to need a row that's about 40 foot long, 120 bean plants, and then your seed spacing is 4 inches, and then yield that you're expecting off a 10-foot row. So that's how all that's calculated. And you just go down the list, and you look at whatever it is you want to harvest. Like if you need 96 pounds of tomatoes to feed your family for like sauces and stuff, it's going to tell you that you're going to need about 28 plants. Now, I'm going to go ahead and switch back off that. And you can find this back over at ufseeds.com/crop calculators. I put the webpage there at the top, and I'll link it in the video if you're watching this on Rewind, so you can just hot link over to it. Now, I say this is a go-by because it really depends on where you live and your growing conditions to how this really applies. If you live somewhere where you have a really optimal growing season during the summer and you don't have intense heat, you don't have late freezes like zone 3 may have. If your soil is really fertile and it's really rich in nutrients, you can pretty well go by this spreadsheet. Now, if you're row cropping and you live in an arid area like West Texas where it's really dry and you don't get much rain, those numbers are really going to change for you because your yields are going to be a little bit different based on how you garden and based on the rainfall. Now, also, one of the other things that I want to talk about is the fertilizer. Based on how you fertilize your plants is going to determine your yield. It's a direct correlation that if you do not fertilize your crops, and I'm talking about organic or synthetic, whatever you use, you're going to have lower yields. And we're seeing that right now with all the fertilizer shortages, that they are saying it is a direct comparison that if you have a 20% less fertilizer going into the fields, you're going to have a significant drop in production. And I don't know what the ratio is, or 20%, if it's equal across the board, 20% reduce in fertilizer produces 20% less yields. I'm not 100% sure on that. So that's one of the factors that you have to consider. We had mentioned whether it was arid where you live or where you get adequate rainfall. Where we live, just north of Mobile and Pensacola, we're one of the rainiest places in the entire United States. We get between 60 and 72 inches of rain a year here. But we have our drought moments, but then we have some gully washer moments where we'll get 4 to 6 inches in a rain session. Hey, Arthur, good to see you. Jennifer did her a couple of rows of potatoes this spring. Adirondack blues, nice. These white fingerlings grew the best for me. The regular Redskins had holes in them. Yeah, that's what I'm finding too, is that your whites and your yellows, they tend to grow better than the purple ones. They do for us. We're happy with the yields that we got out of our purple potatoes, but there's definitely a difference there. We generally plant Yukon Gold. We didn't this year. And when we plant Yukon Gold, we get a much bigger harvest because that's more of a heavy yielding crop. One of the other things I wanted to talk about is when you're factoring in how much food to raise, you have to factor in the plant that you are planting. And it really dawned on me this year whenever I was doing my tomatoes. This year I planted all heirloom tomatoes, and I expected a nice big harvest of tomatoes, but they just didn't produce like the hybrids did. Whenever I plant celebrity tomatoes, those things really load up, and the heirlooms, they don't load up as much. So I went ahead and went back last month and started a round of hybrid tomato seeds. And I'm going to try to get those in the ground and get them producing this year before the grow season is over. I still got several months to do that. So yeah, your plants factor in how much of a yield you're going to be getting. So really consider that. Planting intensity. Now, right now I have a framed out garden. Most of my beds are in ground. I just have wooden box frames around them to kind of, hey, Carolyn, welcome, to kind of mark off where my garden spots are. But my beds are not elevated except for the two that I have for carrots and lettuces and stuff like that. Most of my production is in ground. Going blurry here. So how intense, I don't know why this thing's going blurry on me. Try to look into the camera. Hopefully that, are you guys, there we go. Now we're getting some focus. All right, so whenever I'm planting my beans and my vegetables in my framed out boxes, I plant pretty intensely, almost along the square foot garden. Like whenever I plant my corn, I plant them 8 inches apart in rows that are 18 inches apart. So I have 3 rows of corn at 10 foot each. So I have 30 foot of corn inside one 5 by 10 bed. And it seems to be producing pretty well for me because I also fertilize pretty healthy in those beds. I put down a nice layer of chicken dirt, organic fertilizer, and then for my corn, I supplement with a high nitrogen synthetic fertilizer. Yeah, I'm not organic. I would like to be, but I'm not there yet. So how intense you plant determines how high your yields are going to be. Now, if you look back at this, we'll switch back over here. On beans, it was recommending beans seed spacing 4 inches apart. Nowhere in my rows do I plant my beans 4 inches apart. Sometimes I plant 3 or 4 beans in a grouping side by side. So I almost plant on the double row method, and I plant them really, really intense, but it doesn't seem to affect my harvest because, again, I feed my soil mighty heavily. But if I was in row crops and I couldn't feed an entire 1 acre garden in compost soil and stuff like that, then I probably would space them out so that I could have the plants further apart. It also makes for easier picking also. So how intense determines your yield. And it also one more point to consider when you're talking about how much crops it's going to take to feed your family is succession planting. You can plant a row of corn or a crop of corn here, and then when you harvest that, with our growing season where we're living, you can plant another crop of corn right behind that and get that harvested before the first freeze hits. So if your garden is about half the size of what you think you need, you go back in and start planting right behind as you're pulling crops out. This year, as we harvested our blue potatoes, we went right back in with a summer crop. And you can put sweet potatoes right behind regular potatoes, and you'll harvest those 120 days later. So succession planting adds to the amount of yield that you can get in one growing season. Also, other things people are doing to make good use of their plants on top of succession planting is using greenhouses. So if you have a greenhouse, you can start your seeds early. You can start your frost sensitive plants really early. And then on the backside of that, you have at the end of the season. Around here, we get our frost typically around the 1st of November. But if you have an in-ground, if you have a greenhouse, you can plant in ground and go almost all the way through the winter. And then we get 1 or 2 days, it freezes real hard here. But that's about it. So you can grow right here almost 365 days a year. You can typically grow something. So the fact that you can use a greenhouse to your advantage really makes a difference as to how much you can provide for yourself. Another thing to consider is how much of your diet do you eat at home? A lot of people will go out to eat once a week. Some people I heard someone interview Homestead Channel interviews another gardener this week, and they said that they only eat at home 1 day a week because they're so heavy in their careers that they have dedicated that just 1 day a week they're going to cook their own meals. Do what you can. I mean, that's probably an improvement above where they were at, where they were eating every meal. And they said that their health suffered because of that. So they're trying to do a little bit more and a little bit more. So you're going to pay one way or the other based on your diet. So you can eat good, fresh fruits and vegetables up front and not have to worry about buying health care on the backside. Or you can eat poorly and have a poor diet in your younger years and then pay intensely for health care on the backside. So some of the things that you have to consider.
All right, baby, go to you.
If you guys are getting anything out of this, hit the subscribe button if you don't mind. And that just triggers the algorithm so that we can get more people to watch these videos. I hope you guys are enjoying it. So if you are a vegetarian, you're probably going to need a much bigger garden to feed yourself than if you're raising meat animals. Now, if you're going to be raising meat animals, you're going to need a pasture. Like when you want to raise a cow, that cow is going to require almost 2 acres of pasture land to raise that one cow. And then cows are herding animals. They got to have more than one. So you're probably going to need at least 4 to 5 acres to feed yourself if you're going to be raising animals for your protein. So that would also be another factor that if you want to be self-sustaining, you can expect to almost double the amount of land that you typically have and plant double of what you expect to have. The prepper mindset is and that is very true, that whenever I'm sowing my seeds, nature always rears its ugly head up and comes along and munches on my little seedlings before I even get them in the ground. And then when I get them in the ground, nature comes along and munch on my little transplants. So it's frustrating. I planted 9 tomato plants. I came home from vacation. I've got 7 in the trays because some little bitty caterpillar was hatched out and started munching on my young little tomato seedlings. Hey, appreciate it, Carolyn. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So also plant more than you expect to harvest.
I'm bidding on Pokemon. Here we go. I'm gonna win. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna win.
Michelle's over on her phone playing. But if you expect that you need 12 tomato plants that are going to load up and that's going to provide you the tomatoes that you're going to need, you probably need to plant double that and then expect that they're not going to load up, or you're going to have a bad season or something's going to fail. Disease is going to hit. Last year, or everybody around here had a really bad year for tomatoes because we had a really hot and wet summer. So disease spread everywhere for tomatoes around here. Now my tomatoes are doing pretty good this year. I harvested a Brandywine yellow this morning. It was about 2 pounds and took it to work and made a nice tomato sandwich out of it. Man, it's good. I'm going to probably at least plant 1 or 2 good heirloom tomatoes from here on out, but I'm actually going to be planting a lot of the hybrid tomatoes because of the disease resistance that hybrids generally have. Just went out and a bed of cowpeas have been nipped to the ground by deer. That's horrible. I hate to hear that. I hear people all the time talking about deer coming into their garden, and that's another thing you have to plan for because nature is going to get their share. My garden's in a fenced-in area, but we still get rats out of the woods that come in there and they dig tunnels and they eat my sweet potatoes. We got cats this year that's really curbing that, so I'm thankful for my gardening cats. Yeah. Then we had chickens come out and the chickens stuck their head through my fence and started eating all of my tomatoes. So about half of my tomato harvest was gone this year just from chickens taking their share of the crop. So we're going to have to move our tomatoes in, or we're going to have to fence up a little bit better around the exterior. Okay, move to PowerPoint. There we go. Thanks.
Much
Sorry
better.
about that. That was Michelle. You see Chicken Lady there. That's her. She came in. I guess she's going to be playing moderator tonight. Grow your VIP vegetables first. Whatever it is that you eat the most of. Every week, whatever you're eating multiple times, like tonight we had green beans. This weekend we'll probably have green beans, or we'll have a broccoli. Those are our VIP vegetables. Those are the ones that sustain us. We eat a lot of potatoes, broccoli, and green beans. Green beans and broccoli are our number one things that we make sure that we grow. That and plenty of onions. We probably grow a whole bed of onions, 200 or 300 onions. This year was the best year that we've ever had for onions, and we put a lot in the freezer, and we ended up giving away some just because we knew that we wouldn't be able to utilize all the onions. Permaculture Homestead sells a great deer deterrent. Everyone that uses it says it works for all kinds of critters. Good. Thanks for sharing that, Arthur. There Arthur is sharing all the good tips again. So yeah, plant your VIP vegetables, stuff that you know that you're going to eat. If you don't eat peppers, don't plant peppers. But we grow lots of peppers because we like to dice them up and put them in with the onions and with pan fried. Yeah, bone sauce. That's yeah. I'm hearing really good stuff about Mr. Billy and his bone sauce. We don't have that problem, so I'm not buying any bone sauce, but I hear it's good stuff. Give it a try. Yeah, Perma Pastures, that's it. He sells the bone sauce. I really like watching his videos. Been watching a lot of his stuff lately. But that is the main things that I want to share and talk with you about tonight. We're only at 30 minutes, so guys, we got time to talk. If you hear something you want to talk about, throw it up in chat and let's discuss. It was pretty hot here today. We got what was our heat index, Michelle? 121 degrees was our heat index. Our regular air temperature was 104. Not what it feels like. That was our straight temperature, 104. Hopefully that's the hottest day of the year. Can't take very many of those days. I think next year we're scheduled for a little bit of rainfall, a little bit of every day, so maybe that'll bring it down. One of the things I did order today was a weather station. Ambient weather. They have some really good weather stations. We hook it up to Weather Underground so that it reports up on the network. And no matter where I'm at, I can always log in and look at weather in my area. And other people can log in and look at weather right here where we're at in Flomaton and see what the rainfall is, the temperature, the wind speed. That's why I like to track it. I like to track, one, how much rain we're getting and wind speed. We're right here at the heart of hurricane season. And we would kind of like to monitor the wind speed, the ambient weather. They have a good one. So looking forward to getting that next week and setting that up. All right, guys. Well, if you've got nothing else that you want to talk about, we're going to go ahead and call it a night, I guess. Sure do enjoy hanging out with everybody. And I'm glad that you pop in and spend some time with us. Well, hopefully you're getting something out of this. Hit the like button if you haven't hit the like button. And if you're not subscribed yet, we invite you to hit the subscribe button and join us here. We try to put something out several times a week. Make sure we're putting out good, valuable content. I've been icing water for the rabbits. Yeah, rabbits don't like heat whatsoever. I've had rabbits whenever I was younger, and they really suffer in this heat. You got to keep them well protected and watered down and air conditioned, cooled. Put a fan on them or something. All right, guys, that's going to go ahead and do it for the night. We're at our 30-minute mark. I think we did pretty good. Enjoyed having you around. And we'll talk to you later. See ya.